So let's start with a brief introduction, just so everyone is aware of your capabilities and legacy as we start. Bruce, can we go to you first?
Sure. I'm Bruce Becker. I have an integrated architecture and development firm based in Westport, Connecticut, Becker & Becker Associates. And I'm an architect who sort of expanded my role to be a developer and owner as well, really out of frustration that I couldn't find clients that would go quite far enough off the edge as I would be willing to go.
Damn. Okay. So I don't have those kinds of balls, but I love the fact that you were willing to say, I'm an architect and I'm going to do what I want to do, even if it's on my own dime. So I mean that's courageous. I love that. Dieter, how about you want to try following that up?
I'm Dieter.
Well done.
We had to go out and find a client to take us where we wanted to go. We couldn't initiate it ourselves in entirety. I'm from Dutch East Design. I'm a partner there, and we have an interior design and branding agency 2 blocks from here.
Incredibly talented, beautiful work, and we're lucky to have you guys on this panel and here at ILC, so thank you. I'm Ron Swidler. I am, my brief explanation is I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at the Gettys Group. I've been there for 33 plus years at this point. I've done a lot of things in my career, started a bunch of businesses inside of our company, so I'm an entrepreneur. Started the Hotel of Tomorrow project, which is a hotel industry think tank. If you're curious, search for my name online. You'll find something about it. We're always welcoming new people to focus on the future of hospitality. And I'm also a model for the Groom Guys, as is Mikey Dobin. Free haircuts outside. Don't leave now. Wait until afterwards. But they did a beautiful job. You should have seen the before picture. So let's get to the conversation. There was a great set of images. Do we have a great set of images about your project, guys, that we could flip to really quickly? Was there I thought we were building and that one's not us. I'm not sure if we had, there it is. There's your incredible project, guys. So maybe we're going to do, I'm following the Simon Sinek rule. Anyone know who Simon Sinek is? Watch the TED Talk. Simon Sinek, only like 10 million people have watched it. And he starts by focusing on what and how and then why. Anyone will tell you what they do. Few will tell you how they do it. Even fewer will tell you why they do it. Okay? We are going to talk today with these guys about what they did, how they did it, and why they did it, which we thought would make a compelling conversation. So we structured it that way. We're going to start with the what. And we have the what on the wall on this beautiful screen behind us. I'm going to go to you, Bruce. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so if you look at the middle slide at the top, this is the Armstrong Rubber Company building as it was known and occupied around 1970 with the vintage cars. Designed by Marcel, who 2 years prior to that had won the AIA Gold Medal. He was one of the leaders of the Bauhaus movement and then was recruited to teach a whole generation of architects at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, was a mentor to Philip Johnson, Paul Rudolph, Edward Larrabee Barnes, and sort of a whole who's who list of even more famous mid-century modern architects. And this is a building that was vacant. After Armstrong moved out, Pirelli moved in, they moved out in 1998, and the building was vacant for 20 years, and 140,000 cars passed it every day looking at it, including me and one of them, wondering, why is this incredible work of brutalist architecture sitting vacant? And I had made my recent career out of rehabilitating significant historic buildings. I'd never done a hotel before, and I spent about 2 years trying to figure out a way to solve the problem of reusing the building, and ended up transforming it into a 165-room hotel, which you can see upon completion on the left side. And we were delighted to work with Dieter and his firm, Dutch East Design, on both the branding and the interior design. And we just opened it last month. It's part of the Hilton Tapestry collection. It has about 7,000 square feet of meeting space, but it is best known for things that I thought I was surprised it was the first of. There are only about 12 LEED Platinum hotels in the United States. Can
I interrupt long enough to ask you to explain what being LEED Platinum is?
Well, LEED Platinum is basically a score you get from the U.S. Green Building Council for ratings on reuse of materials, energy and water conservation, about maybe 50 different metrics that measure objectively with third-party verification the sustainability of how the building is created. And it's surprisingly absent in the hotel world, but in multifamily and schools and public buildings, it's second nature for most designers. So because I was new to hotels, I assumed that everyone was doing LEED projects. Surprised that it really has not been captivating people's attention. But then I also, like the rest of the world, was aware that we're in this existential climate crisis, and that any combustion of fossil fuels is making the problem worse. And I didn't want to be part of a team, certainly leading a team that was leading us in the wrong direction. So early on, I decided to not have any fossil fuels used for the building. So there's not even a natural gas connection for the kitchen or the laundry. And that led us down a path which we were surprised to find we were the only one who had done that. And also we have solar panels that will produce all the electricity on site with battery storage. So we've been getting a lot of attention that's sort of organic for not only revitalizing this mid-century modern masterpiece, but also doing it in a way that apparently is pretty notable in terms of its environmental footprint.
Right. So I'm going to summarize there, because I think that it's worth noting that perhaps lost in all of that, you took an incredibly important building by an incredibly important architect that was vacant, right? And you converted it to a beautiful hotel, now part of Tapestry, that is a net zero hotel and a LEED Platinum certified building. I'm going to pause long enough for us to all applaud you right now, because that is really something, right? So, and then you were smart enough to go find someone else to ride alongside of you on this journey, this adventure.
Well, more than riding alongside, Dieter's firm, we actually spent almost a year trying to find someone like Dieter, because we're the design architect of record, but we're also collaborators. We have what we consider to be the world's best energy modeling consultant, a fantastic mechanical engineer, great structural engineers, but we need to have a team of folks that really can move us beyond where we could go on our own, and always find people that know much more than we do. So we, together with my wife Kramer Becker, who's my partner, we're looking for creative direction from someone that could do both branding and interior design together. Because we were interviewing a bunch of folks who did it separately, and then there was a whole other challenge of getting them on the same wavelength.
Yeah. No, you didn't know me, apparently, when this project started.
I didn't. Well, we're also looking for a very...
I said it wouldn't be a plug about me, but, what he does is incredible. So
we were looking for a very small firm because we talk to them every day, and we're really sort of, it's one dialogue. So that was how we found it.
That's another word for scope creep, but...
All right, so Dieter, let's talk for a second about the what for you. I mean, what did this project came to you in some form, and I'm really curious to know, when you looked at this opportunity, what did it look like to you?
Well, it would have been an amazing project if you ignore any of the sustainability measures. And so when Ashley Michaels of Hilton reached out to me, saying what it was without saying what the building was, we were very excited to work on such an iconic building. And then so, of course, layering in all the other design parameters was very exciting for us. The big kind of internal crossroads that we came across, myself and my two partners, was, are we going to ask ourselves, what would Breuer do? Yeah. And we tested the waters with, peers, and I think it was important that we not try to answer that question, and we can dive into that a bit more. But it was important not to create a museum.
So the hotel is called the Marcel, and it is respectfully reverent to Marcel Breuer. And I think what you did was actually harder, frankly. I think the idea of finding design sensibilities that work within this building, work within the constraints of a carbon neutral building, but without just going and getting or reproducing a bunch of Breuer furniture, is frankly, it's a beautiful solution. Was that a challenge for you to find that balance?
I mean, yes, but it just, once you go through a process and do a thorough investigation of what the intent should be or the proposition should be, it seemed like it was the book that wrote itself in a way. Once you make that first conceptual decision, yeah. We wanted to reintroduce people to brutalism, showing them, a beautiful, warm, softer underbelly to a concrete. So
could you, just in case people are imagining brutalism by a different definition, can you help them understand architecturally and design-wise what brutalism means, guys?
Yeah, well, brutalism it's not really a style. It's an attitude towards architecture, which is to express the inherent quality of materials. It's done different ways, but probably the most visible brutalist buildings are concrete ones, where the texture of the concrete is exhibited and the structure itself is shown off. It's about what this whole organization is about, authenticity, not to try to hide how the building is built or what it's made of, but to display that. And sometimes, concrete, it can be a harsh, sharp, imposing surface. And what Dieter's organization did so beautifully is to make it warm and inviting on the inside, while it's quite foreboding on the outside. It's really a heroic piece of architecture. Yeah. It has this volume that floats in the air. It's cantilevered in the same way Breuer's famous Cheska chair is cantilevered. So it's the same idea that carries through this sort of Bauhaus ideal of expressing structure.
It's a bit Empire on the outside and Jedi on the inside. That's that
exactly
fair?
It, yeah.
Anyone watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, by the way?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so good, right? You're with me on that one? So we talked a little bit about the what. Let's talk about the how. Let's go one step in, because we are on a net zero panel here. So let's talk about what. I'm going to feed you a question, Bruce, just so you have a single point of focus here. So how did you land there? How did net zero become your North Star?
Well, you don't have to look very far to see people in countries all over the world protesting at, with their governments to stop using fossil fuels. I mean, it's essential if we don't want to destroy this planet that we do it immediately. I've been driving electric cars for a decade. I just could not even fathom being associated with, because I have this extra responsibility as architect and developer. I can't blame anyone else. I can't say, well, the client made us use fossil fuels. So I have this additional burden of really being fully responsible for what happens in making the building. So simple decision was, okay, we're not going to use fossil fuels. It's going to be an all-electric building. Pretty simple. I did it for my house. Any building can be all electric these days, and actually without any cost premium. So that was a simple decision. Then in order to make it net zero, I had to just find space for the 1,000 solar panels on the rooftop, on the canopy, which you can sort of see. We have 3 big solar canopies to the north that provide covered parking.
Can I go back to something that you said, just so it isn't lost in the transcription of this momentous speech? You said any building can be electric at basically no additional cost. And I think that is a critically important point for those in the audience who might be considering alternative energy sources for their projects. And I'm going to stick with you for one more second about the how. How is that possible?
Well, there's some new and old technologies. There are things called variable refrigerant flow heat pumps that provide heating and cooling. There was a while when you couldn't really heat well in the dead of winter with a heat pump, but now you can. These heat pumps work at 100% of their rated capacity down to 22 degrees below zero. They're super efficient. They're less expensive, and instead of having to put in a heating system and an air conditioning system, you put in one system. And they work at any scale from your house to a skyscraper. So we also have actually the first system that creates domestic hot water with a heat pump, and Mitsubishi and a couple other companies make that. So that was one of the harder things that the technology just became available, but now it's available, in any quantity. We also made the kitchen all electric. That was a fairly simple thing, using induction ranges instead of big gas grills, but that actually helps you maintain excellent indoor air quality. You're not burning up all the oxygen in the kitchen. People are less tired working in the kitchen, and it has real health benefits. And the chefs are enjoying that, that you can heat things precisely. We have a laundry on site that has, that's the simplest thing. When you buy a laundry for your home, you can get an electric dryer or a gas dryer. We just picked the electric one. So these are just consumer choices you can make. Often, if you have a big team where decisions are shared, you just do what you did before. But we were in a position to say, hey, doing what we did before doesn't make sense given the climate mandates that we have.
Sure. So, okay, you're making it sound incredibly easy. So, Dieter, I'm wondering if you can check the reality of this. Not doubting you by any means, but in my mind, and I'm trying to think like the rest of the people in the room, this commitment to alternative energy and sustainable energy, electricity and solar power, all the things that you did, it seems in the past at least, it was keeping people from pursuing this. So when we're saying on the how for you, Dieter, how does a project like this, being net zero, look to an interior design and branding agency?
Well, there's the practical side of it and on the branding side as well. On the practical side, it's not just net zero. That's not the only metric we're dealing with here. We're talking about the LEED qualification and then passive house, that sort of Venn diagram of, can I call them governing bodies? Certifications they're just other layers of design parameters on top of everything else you work with as a designer. So I think LEED is was the most relevant for us because we had a huge control over air quality in picking all the finishes and furnishings throughout the space. So that was kind of our biggest leverage as an interior designer.
So could you go deeper on that? Are you talking about off-gassing?
Yes,
and
primarily off-gassing and composition of materials to, mainly for air quality, off-gassing. And then
sourcing, we purchased a lot of the products locally. We had our case goods made in Torrington, Connecticut, and from the New Traditionalists and from Stickley. Probably the most significant thing we did in terms of the materials of the building is we recycled an entire building. And then the Dutch East Design took a very creative approach to recycling the actual light fixtures. You can sort of see, I guess there you see the 1x4 light fixtures. Those were the original light fixtures in the building. There were over 800 of them. We took them out, cleaned them, painted them, relamped them with LED, power over Ethernet, and then put them back in. I do want to mention the passive house that Dieter touched on. Passive house is a popular standard in Europe, and it's gaining ground here. And it really just involves taking great care that the envelope is sealed and well insulated, and that you're recovering the waste heat as you ventilate. It's a fairly simple standard to meet, but that actually is the thing that allows us to put the energy requirements on a diet. So we only need about 20% of the energy a building would normally need, and allows us to provide that energy with 1,000 panels instead of 5,000 panels.
So we've covered some of the what. I'm trying to keep us on schedule. You have 7 minutes and 31 seconds. We've covered some of the what. We cover some of the how. I want to get to the why, and I want to start with why now. Not why'd you do it now, but why is it important now? Has something changed in your view and kind of the world's readiness for this? And before you answer that question, I'll just say the media attention for what you guys have done, you know, Fast Company, Travel and Leisure, they're acting as if no one has ever considered the environment when designing a hotel before. So my question, why now? Has something happened? Dieter, I'm going to you first.
I mean, the practical reasons for doing it now are evident, and Bruce has touched on that, and I think everyone in this room knows that. I think from it might sound like a sellout, but from a marketing and customer relations point of view, it's the consumer is so switched on to this kind of product now. They are making choices based on what you as an operator or owner or a designer are doing to be sustainable. And greenwashing is prevalent in every industry and every aspect of the economy, but now we're at a point where if you're making half measures, don't even declare them, because the customer is onto you. And so if they're half measures, don't just let them be that, and your customer will honor you for making significant, genuine interventions, and create a meaningful narrative around that. I think that's really, really important.
Oh, I agree with you, and I think that consumers are more aware of their carbon footprint. Look, if you search for your flight on Google to come here, it showed you your carbon footprint by choosing that flight. I mean, we will be making decisions as to where we stay. Certainly meeting planners are considering that right now as to where they will host meetings. So it seems the consumer is asking for it. It seems, Bruce, coming back to your point, that some of the equipment that's available, the efficiency of the equipment that's available is kind of getting us to this Malcolm Gladwell tipping point here as well.
I think it's like electric cars. I mean, it's the fastest segment of growth. They're doubling every year. I think, you know, in New York City, they're putting failing grades on buildings that are not sort of being sensitive to their environmental footprint. And I think it is largely market-driven that, it's not just the media, but the people booking our event space this is one of the drivers for it. But I also just think it's a responsibility. If you're making consumer choices, you can't continue to treat our atmosphere as an open sewer. We have to sort of not put anything in it, and that's easy to do with electrification.
Go ahead, Dieter.
I was building on what I was saying before. You're often the most receptive to new ideas when you're traveling. I know I am when I'm in a different country in an unusual environment. So I think we should use initiatives such as very, very sustainable hotels as an opportunity to empower travelers. You're in a new place and you're being exposed to a new ethos or point of view.
So one of the, and we have 3 minutes for questions, but one of the things that we're trying to do here at the ILC, I say we only because these guys are kind enough to include me on their advisory board, but one of the things we're trying to do is to be a resource to others and build this sense of community. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but are you guys available to share some of the lessons learned with some of the people in the room who are eager to embrace a similar path?
In fact, I think we have different interests. I mean, Dieter does a great job, and I'd encourage anyone to reach out to him to keep him busy doing exactly what he did so well for us. My job is not to do another hotel, but to share our experience with others, because I think we're in this position to actually affect the whole industry. I'm going to talk to Hilton about putting something, maybe a couple paragraphs in their 800 pages of brand standards that talk about electrification. You know, you think that the hotels companies that are, you know, they have to list their ESG profile in their annual report. That, and I realize that as you know, now their relationship is as a franchisor, but there really does need to be more substance other than, you know, bulk shampoo dispensers and optional laundry service to deal with the climate challenge that we're in.
What you just said deserves applause again. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple minutes for questions for these guys. Does anyone have a question?
Thank you, sir. I'll direct this at Bruce. Dieter and I know each other. Bruce, as a New Haven native, was one of those 140,000 cars going by every day. My whole life staring at this building. I think there's a whole understory of this, not only the architecture and the sustainability, but the city of New Haven and that market. It's a huge risk. Like, it's not a big market, it's an up and down market. So how did you kind of go about that decision of doing this and putting that out there?
Sure, good question. Well, I spent 2 years trying to figure out if it was a good idea or not. I hired HBS to do a market study, realized that the market was underserved. The city population hasn't changed a whole lot, but the type of population has changed. Yale has like this $45 billion endowment. They keep hiring people and building more buildings. There's a boom going on with the residential sector. But there was no Hilton in the market, so we figured that's an easy thing to affiliate with and pick up a little more certainty about our ability to fill the rooms. It's really well located. It's the closest hotel to Worcester Square and Sally's and Pepe's, and the closest hotel to the Union Station, which is the 10th busiest Amtrak station in the United States. So it wasn't just a gut feeling. We hired a consultant to look at the numbers, and but even then we had to, we did put the building on the National Register because a third of the financing comes from tax credits. It was not, there was a lot of analysis there, but I think New Haven, I just have a lot of faith in cities now, and that the suburbs are sort of over, and if you're near a train station and you're in a place where there are educated people that want to, open their eyes to travel, what better place than New Haven?
Thank you so much for that. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
One more question back here, Ron. Ron. One more question.
Sorry.
Oh, it'll be a quick question. We do have, obviously, in hotels, we do a lot of gold LEED certified, but we don't go as far as you went. My biggest question is, and I know there's economics, you talked about doing the analysis, but one of the things was very interesting to me, you talked about energy and how this type of energy you use for the building only use 20% of the power that you normally use. It seems like a no-brainer from an economic standpoint. Why do you think that doesn't happen more in buildings that are built new today or even renovated?
Well, there's nothing in the brand standards that addresses the need to do that. And the first, if you're looking at 800 pages of requirements, the last thing you're going to think of is, well, let's come up with some more. So it's just not on the list of things you have to do, unless it comes. Yeah, no, economically, the energy efficiency investments pay for themselves in 3 or 4 years. They're the highest return investment you can make of all the things that you invest in. I think it's just, there's so many players. There's the brand, the owner, the manager, and it's never been front and center with their priorities.
I can add something to that. I think there's not an entirely new, but a slightly new suite of consultants that you may have to engage. It's just a new bunch of things you have to think about, basically, and we're in a transition.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the questions, too.